This thing had a lot of components, and writing big ass is probably the one that I was not expecting. Welcome to the Twisted Pint Tavern. Today we're visiting r/D&D to check out the answers to DMs, what are your best you could certainly try stories? A fighter in full plate armor decided that he needed to disguise himself as a Minotaur, so he bought a boar's head, hollowed it out, and glued it to his helmet, with no other disguise kit or prep done. He then tried to convince some other monsters he was their buddy, the Minotaur. It was not successful. I can see a few points in the process where that plan could have failed, but I think it starts with the fact that Minotaurs are part cow, not part boar. A slightly modified one-shot version of the Death House, and the players had beaten the basement monster and were now trying to escape the house. Low on health and resources, and quite thoroughly panicking, they got to the front door and found it locked. So the Minotaur Barbarian, Minotaur again, asked me, can I charge at the wall and just try to smash through it? Not the door, mind you, the wall. I said, you can certainly try, make me an athletics check. He countered, asking if he could use his charge attack instead, and I agreed that that seemed fair. Natural 20 on physical dice in my presence. I took this as a sign from the dice gods and allowed him to Kool-Aid Man his way through the wall, although a falling brick bopped him on the head on the way through and he went unconscious. The other party members dragged him to safety and all ended happily and funnily. Look, I'm not one to say that every nat 20 is going to succeed, but if someone's using a charge attack to get through an old haunted house wall and they get a nat 20, they're probably getting through the dang wall. My DM let me do something similar in our death house, so we had two players that were a couple in real life, and they tended to wander off on their own, though not too far. They went into a room just before the final boss and activated a pedestal that sealed the one entrance with magic and spawned 8 specters. The other 3 members, including myself, are now locked out of the room. I asked the DM if I can ram the wall next to the sealed door. You can certainly try. So I, a level 3 moon druid, he started us at 3, shift into a direwolf and make a slam attack onto the wall. Nat 20, he rules that the wall explodes and I fall prone on the other side. Gotta love those moments. It's very Edward Elric in Full Metal Alchemist of, oh, I don't have a door, allow me to make one. And honestly, I love that mentality, it's great. Pathfinder 1E, the paladin is being swarmed by tiny infernal insects of some kind and is low on health. The rest of the party is searching their inventories for something they can use. Alchemist's fire, flasks of acid, all effective, but would kill the paladin too. The paladin won't last another round unless someone does something. The sorcerer reads on his inventory sheet that he has a blueberry muffin that he got a bit earlier when they were investigating the disappearance of a bakery's apprentice. Can I throw the muffin on the ground near the insects and maybe they'll swarm to it? You can certainly try, I said. I had them roll a d20 for their response to the muffin, nat 20. No insect, not even one touched by the depths of the abyss, can resist the power of a blueberry muffin. Insects swarm the muffin, and the party proceeds to kill the insects with flasks of acid. Is it a little goofy? Yeah, but have you ever seen insects swarm like fruity baked goods? Because they do like those fruity baked goods, and I can't blame them. Have you had a good blueberry muffin? Those things, The party is transporting an obsidian coffin that contains the BBEG. They are perfectly aware that this is what's inside. They've had several encounters where touching the coffin with bare hands or partially opening it has resulted in weird shadow magic disasters. It is incredibly heavy and hard to move, but they discover that it becomes weightless in total darkness. The druid decides that she knows where it is both dark and mobile, inside of her body after wildshaping into a huge constrictor snake. I attempt to dissuade, bringing up past encounters and asking, are you absolutely sure? She comes back with herpetology data, whatever that is, citing how much volume she can consume as a giant snake. Who am I to argue with science? I roll a d100 because fuck it, maybe it might work if I roll a 99 to 100. I don't. She takes a bunch of necrotic damage and I have her roll a bunch of saves to resist shadow corruption. She is now a Shoutout druid, but they move the coffin, so that's nice. I mean, really, it's risk and reward. The risk is pretty much completely changing your character and losing yourself to the process, but the reward is moving the coffin. Then there's this reply, couldn't they have just covered it in a big blanket, then put it into a crate, then gotten the druid to drag it? Yes they could have, but as a GM, I'm not here to present plans, only roll with the insane ones my players come up with. That's a good GM, that's a good job. Yes, there are sometimes smarter ways to do things, and I'm not saying punish the players for not thinking of the smarter ways, but you roll with the punches, and sometimes you get really fun stories out of it. Speaking of wild planning, do you know how much wild planning goes on back at the Twisted Pint Tavern Discord server? Man, after a few pints, people are talking everything from D&D session planning to overthrowing a monarchy, and it gets pretty intense sometimes. You can join in on these festivities with the link in the description. Had this one as a player in just session 2, but it's a terribly memorable moment. We sneak up on the bandit hideout to find a bugbear, hobgoblin, and 2 goblins standing watch. That's a pretty tough encounter at level 2, so we start brainstorming ways to soften it up. Good lore checks helped us remember the goblinoid god Bugbear and how he will recruit goblinoids into his mighty army one day. The bard decides to use message to whisper into the bugbear's ear that Bugbear wants to recruit the strongest of the guards into his great army, and that if he can defeat his companions, he'll be selected. The DM called for both a deception and performance roll, and the bard nails both of them. Bugbear rolls a 20 on his first attack and brains the hobgoblin in one hit. The goblins scramble to figure out what's happening as the bugbear drops them each with a javelin. He then covers his face in blood like war paint and runs down the hill to meet up with the glorious goblin army. 4 monsters defeated with 1 cantrip. This is why I firmly believe cantrips might be the most powerful spells in the game. Sure, they're no power word kill, but with the right kind of role playing, a creative idea, and a well-timed cantrip, you can have the entire goblin camp rip itself apart. I had a player similarly defeat a giant goblin, shut up I could make up what I want, that was in control of this roaming camp of goblins by sneaking into the camp, rushing some guards, and once close enough to this giant goblin named Big Ass, my player used telepathy and his high performance modifier to convince Big Ass that he was the voice of God, not specific, and that he now had to hand over the reins of the camp over to the 2 friendly goblins they were there to save. He rolled a 19 plus a bajillion, and Big Ass, who isn't bright, gave in immediately. Now those goblins are trying to find a place they can call home, and the 2 goblin friends ride Big Ass in his leather vest pockets like he's a big slow bus taking them everywhere. This thing had a lot of components, and riding Big Ass is probably the one that I was not expecting. My first session ever, the other players were experienced and I joined an ongoing campaign, so we started around level 8ish. We were in hell and we were entering Tiamat's court. Yep, just classic D&D. Now, me being the newbie first-timer didn't know who Tiamat was, so I asked and got the summary that she was a big evil dragon. Cue Shrek memes in my head, and I decided to seduce the dragon. Mind you, I'm doing this as a barbarian with 0 riz and no experience. Long story short, 1 teammate on death rolls and a once-in-a-lifetime ability used later, we somehow survived, but I most certainly led my party to the verge of a TPK. Sorry guys. Yeah, the meme of I try to seduce the dragon typically doesn't end well, especially when that dragon is Tiamat. Because first off, you got 5 dragons at that point to technically seduce, and secondly, no, I don't think that's gonna work. But that is where we're gonna wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and click subscribe so you can see more Twisted Pint Tavern content. If you're not already in the Twisted Pint Tavern Discord server, you should really give it a try, because it's a lot of fun in there, and people really do enjoy talking all things D&D and various other games. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, click the link in the description to join the Twisted Pint Tavern Discord server, and I'll see all of you wonderful people in the next video.